Hello, everybody. I'm Joseph, or JMB_piano on Instagram, as you clearly know. Um, Today, I will actually start a video series going over pieces of mine and also other composers like Mozart, Beethoven, or at least the ones that I'm the most inspired by. And so, as my first video, I would go over the mass that I've been writing for the past uh, year and a half, 2 years. It's almost been about 2 years now since I've actually started writing this. Oh, year and a half. Maybe it's been over a year, anyways. But so the goal of this is to, give like my some background information about it, inspirations, my thought process, going behind the scenes when actually writing this kind of thing. And so the first thing I want to start off with is the mass. I mean, it's the biggest piece of work that I've ever even attempted. It's the most ambitious thing I'm really attempting and actually currently writing. And so I think it would be very cool to give you guys some background information. And I know a couple of my musician friends um, that actively follow my work will also appreciate the background information on this and my thought process behind every little thing about it. So I will discuss about a certain section of the piece. So I will go over the beginning, middle, just different sections that I think need to be clarified or just stuff I want to talk about. And then I'll play it back and see, and so you guys can understand my thought process and say, oh, well, that actually is very interesting. Now I understand why he did that, or if you were even thinking that to begin with. Anyways, so this is gonna be fun. I always like talking about music, so um, so this gives me an excuse to talk about it for several hours, if not several minutes. Um, so this is the KDA section, which was completed actually about a month and a half ago, even though I've been writing it for about a year. It took, on this actual first section I wrote on paper and I posted about it on the first day of my second or third semester of college. No, probably third semester of college. And I posted the beginnings of it, which was just this section. This was just the beginning idea that I had written down, and I had dabbled with this a little bit, but it was actually a bit different than it is now. Thus is the editing and compositional process. Um, and I got to hear this section over here, which is probably my favorite section within this entire movement. And I do something over here where I go from A minor to A major, the relative mate or the parallel major of A minor, and I didn't know how to continue it, so I kind of just sat there for a year, and I just kind of dabbled with it. I edited it, I did this and that with it, but it never came out right. It never came out, and the continuation never made sense. Um, but now I have thus finished it and extended it quite a great deal. But anyways, back to the beginning. So here this little introduction section. For those of you that are musically literate, or at least in classical sense, and listen to a lot of classical music and love opera and the oratorios, several oratorios written by Verdi, Mozart, Beethoven, and whatnot. This little this little motif right here, which is essentially the theme, but not quite the theme. Like, it's just something that I put in the beginning because I knew I was going to return to it at some point, just to kind of tie things together. So this is actually a callback to Verdi's Requiem. In the very beginning, he actually does it a lot more eloquently than I do. Of course, it is also in A minor. If I remember, yes, Verdi's Requiem in the very beginning is in fact in A minor, and so this little theme, that is a callback to that little motif that he had in the very first movement of the Requiem. And so I use that. I say, that is really cool. I like that. So I'm going to use it because I know I'm going to return to it. This is how I'm going to tie the piece together later on. Or at least this general movement. And this is exactly what I do later on. You see it repeated. Let me see. Where is it? Well, you see it right here, which is kind of cool, which I actually do the full arpeggiation from the high octave to the lower octave, but I don't resolve it there. I actually continue it there. And then over here is when is like the main return to the A. But in this context, it is classified A prime, mainly because this is a recall, like a recall to the original, to the very first introduction of the A theme. However, I just take that idea and I just run with it, and I just do it with this arpeggiated, with like the arpeggiated bass line, or not really a bass line, but the arpeggiated cellos that outline all the chords that are being played here. Gives it a lot more texture, and it becomes a really valuable tool in actually in modulation, which I do end up later doing when I go from A minor to E minor and then into A major, which is a really weird modulational process, but I managed to make it work. Or at least for me, it's kind of weird, but it's not that crazy because, it's just going to a fifth and then you're going back. But instead of going back to A minor, I'm simply going back to A major. I'm going to A major, switching it up a little bit, and which is really cool because here in this section I actually end on an E minor. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm still trying to talk about the beginning, but now I'm explaining things that are way in the future. But anyways, okay, so that's the thought process behind that. I return to it a good few times, and it becomes a very valuable little little idea, a little motif, which I end up speeding up and I mess with a lot later. And so here, I wanted the bass to come in with it, which I think is a really which kind of, in pianissimo, it becomes almost this kind of like, I don't really have the word properly to describe the feeling that I get from it, but it becomes almost like not exactly sinister, but it's almost like something is coming. It's like a foreshadowing of what is yet to come, which which later on, I do some crazy cool stuff, at least in my opinion. But here I drag out that A because, at least because, A minor, and then I go to the E dominant, which traditionally, if you're going to go from an A minor to E dominant, you are going to go, if you have something on A, like in the bass, and you want to go from root position to root position, I'll jump up to E. But I decided to sustain that A, and because it creates this tension, a greater tension than if it was just a dominant chord. And usually I hate those kinds of dissonances, but in this case, I wanted to create that real tenuous little feel that it's like this is not just a dominant chord. This is more than that, and this is going to be, I just wanted to create more tension, and I thought holding out that A in the bass, and especially in the cellos and the double bass, was going to create this sense of instability throughout this section, which I really loved. And then I pull back a little bit and I actually let it resolve at the end. But but for some reason, even though it's resolved, it doesn't feel resolved, and which is precisely the mood that I wanted to go for. And if I just play this for you guys real quick, I'll just play it. It doesn't. You feel that incredible tension, even though it is the proper chord. And I use a 1/6. A 1/6/4, I believe, in that section. And so I use a 1/6/4 to 5. Back to 1, and then. Anyways, that was so I wanted to create that tension, and I found it very nice, at least with the choral aspect of this little area. Even though it technically resolved, it didn't feel like a resolution, and you can hear that clearly, or more or less clearly. I think it's pretty clear to me. But here in this little section right here, at least in the choral aspect, even though it's technically a root position 1, because I have this holding over, and I have this right here. Oh no, okay, didn't want to. That would have been really bad if I ruined that. But right here, I have a 1/6/4 in the choir, which I think is the more important thing. The bass is simply on A in order to create an air of instability, even though it's it's fine. Like, at least in this measure, it's still the one chord. But in this, but because it's kind of like subtle, it's a subtle A, and it's being held out, and like the main focus is on the choir. It gives a sense of instability. The 1 6 4 to the 1 6 to the 1, and then to the dominant with that A holding over, it creates even more. I think it creates a little bit more instability, which I think is really cool. And then it resolves right there. It resolves seemingly, but there's a moment of silence that I have here. Then from here, I introduce the Christe eleison, which is the first moment in this piece where I kind of make everything loud as all hell for about no reason whatsoever. Actually, there is a reason, because I like dynamic cliffing. It's an incredible compositional tool that I absolutely love, and I'm sure many of you know that by now after listening to a couple to my work. So here I actually use a cool what is it? A augmented 6, which is a really fun chord. Instead of using like the 5 of 5 or like the 5 dominant of 5 5 7 of 5, you can use a augmented 6 to actually go to the 5, which is a really cool thing. Like, it's just such a crunchy chord, and I thought the 5 7 of 5 would have been it wouldn't have given off the same crunchiness um and the same feel, because it's just the 5 7 of 5, whatever. It's not crazy, it's not as crunchy as I would have liked it, so I decided not to use it, and I opted for this augmented 6, which leads to E major, which is the dominant of A minor, or E major, oh, E major dominant, which is the dominant of A minor and also A major, but still, we're in A minor right now. So I decide to do that, and I resolve. This is the first time you feel like a proper resolution. Is just tension, 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 and then it stops, and then just loud entrance of the bass with the cellos and the double bass, and then you get even more crunch and even more, just tension, and then tension is still there because it doesn't properly resolve to E major, because with the augmented 6 you want to go to the E, you want to go to E major, like no dominant included. You just want to be at E major. It's a nice chord to actually modulate to to E, or to, like, the dominant of whatever key you're in. So normally you just resolve on E, and then it's a cool half cadence, which is really nice. But well, would it be a half cadence? Probably. I don't know. I'm probably dumb, but you guys can tell me, or the people that understand theory better than I do can tell me whether that would still be a half cadence, which I'm pretty sure it is. It might just straight up be a modulation, but still. Well, it's a modulation if you stay in the key, but still, or not really. Anyways, I'm gonna stop talking. But I go to an E dominant, and it creates another layer of crunch. So it's just tension, like hard tension, and then you think it's going to go to resolution, but it's even more tension, and then I go back to the home key of A minor, which is really cool. And then from there, I decide to hold out the A in the first violin section, and just have it just pull back, going quiet again, and it doesn't feel stable. At least to me, and at least in my feeling of stability, it doesn't feel stable. Like, it feels like, oh, we're not done. Oh, the piece isn't done. Okay, well, we're just gonna keep on going then, which was obviously what I wanted to do. So then I return back to the main theme of bum bum bum. That wasn't the note. Still, I go back to that main theme. It creates this really easy transition into this next section, where I have the soprano soloist actually enter for the first time in this piece, which she will become very prominent later on. And what I love about this little section, what is probably one of the coolest things that I have done, is that I create I do this little chord progression where it seems like I'm going to modulate from A minor to C sharp minor, which originally that was actually the plan. I was going to go to C sharp minor, then I was going to do some cool stuff there. It's like a cool little, it's a really really cool little modulation. But instead I actually decided, nah, that's kind of, it's not crazy. It's not that crazy. It's like whatever. At least I saw it as whatever. Maybe everyone else would have thought, oh my gosh, A minor to C sharp minor. Oh, that's incredible. Probably not, but still, I decided that this right here, that going from C sharp minor to C sharp diminished was actually the better play. And it turns out it is, because it adds another layer of tension, which is really cool, and allows me to go to D minor, which is perfect because D minor is the perfect key, and it's a very easy transition and also modulation to G minor, which I go into in the ostinato section. But yeah, so that's why I did that. That's why, instead of just staying in C sharp minor, which I'm not sure how many of you actually saw that, where it was like, oh my gosh, C sharp minor. Oh no, not C sharp minor, C sharp diminished. Oh my gosh, I don't think anyone noticed that, but it's something that I noticed and I really liked and I was really proud of. Just kind of like that deceptive, like, oh, you think, oh no, we're not going to C sharp minor. No, no. I know you wanted it to stay in C sharp minor. I know it was kind of cool, but I'm the composer here, not you. So, so here I have a little bit of like a call and response type of thing, which, Kyrie, Kyrie, which is, same rhythm, same everything. Um, although it is in a different chord, which is kind of the point. Call and response is like, call and response is the, one guy says something, the other guy says something in response to that, and call and echo is when it is just 100% repeated. This is like an echo, but it's just a different chord, which probably makes it fine to be called a call and echo. But anyways, I have it like that. So then I have, same principle here. Could he stay? Not the notes again, but I'm gonna roll with it. And then I have that kind of echoed here, but instead of, I kind of just, same principle. And the movement here, I didn't want it to be on a whole note and then it goes into the next. I wanted a sense of movement into the next section, which is why I did the little walking motion with the choir. And then here, this right here, this, I can talk about this for a very long time. This little motif of this little chromatic motif of several half steps being played in succession is something that I have used in several of my pieces. Not many, not well, not several, but in a couple, in a prominent manner. I have used it in others, like in the hand independence etude. I used it lightly in the bass, and I've used it in my first symphony, which is still being written to this day, but still. But that's a far more prominent role than what this is. I'm using this little motif as a modulational tool, and it actually is incredibly versatile. You can use it in any key to get to any key that you want, seemingly, if you play your cards right. And so in this part, I go from D minor, and I use this little phrase or this little motif to get to G minor, which is not a crazy, like, oh my gosh, D to D minor to G minor. That's unheard of. It's actually incredibly simple. When it comes to chords, anyone that has studied four-part harmony or modulations in any form know that's not crazy. But the way that I stretch it out like this, it makes it pretty damn cool. A lot more interesting than just going, oh, D minor, oh, D major dom or D dominant, oh, G minor, cool. Although that's kind of what I do with this, but not really. But I do, in fact. So I go from D minor, and I use this little transitory phrase, which I'll call it a transitory phrase or a modulational phrase, whatever. I'm going to use it interchangeably like that. So just be aware that if I say transitory phrase, modulational phrase, I'm referring most likely to this unless otherwise stated. But this right here, this is the entrance of G minor. So this is the first part where I make it clear we're in G minor now. And then from there we stay in G minor, then we go to D dominant for the first time. And so this is like the first proper part. This is the part in this little section that I say this is going to be a proper G minor. I'm not just kind of visiting G minor for a second. We're going to stay in G minor for a while. And I have practically the entire orchestra joining in, aside from the trombones and the tuba and the timpani, but they will be in it obviously in the large ostinato section that I have here. Oh, oopsies. Anyways, and I have the soprano soloist repeat that transitory phrase or modulational phrase or that motif, whatever. Um, and then I have her pull, instead of resolving on the G F sharp G, which is what I did, which I usually do. I'll go and then that's it. That it's resolved. We're in the new key, whatever. But in this part, because I wanted to hold out that tension, especially being on a D dominant, having that G in there gives it some extra crunch and extra and more tension. And then I have her stay on the F sharp, and then I have the whole orchestra do an F sharp diminished 7, which is a really really fun chord. At least it just sounds so like dramatic in the way that I orchestrated it. So I'll play this quick section for you so you can get an understanding better. Anyways, so I accidentally stopped the recording, which is why there's a cut in the video. But anyways, the last thing I was talking about was this, and how this little F sharp 7, F sharp diminished 7 is in fact how it goes. Is in fact how I really solidify and just dramatize the entrance of G minor, even though it was entered over here, it's not dramatic. This is a dramatic, which was the whole point. I wanted it to be dramatic. I wanted to be incredibly dramatic and just powerful, just punch into G minor, which this ostinato actually is something that I came up with several years before I actually started writing the mass. I was walking around the area that I live in, and usually when I go on these walks, I'll come up with something. So I'll just do a voice recording of me singing through what I'm thinking of. And this ostinato, bum 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 dun 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 bum bum, and then I repeat that, and then I end up messing with it and use it to modulate to A flat major. Within this ostinato, within this little section, I should say rather. So I just plugged it in. I plugged it in. I said, that's perfect. I love that. And then I'm just gonna have the choir sing over it, doubled by the strings. It's gonna be really cool. But what I didn't, when I first uploaded the video of this ostinato, you could hardly hear the ostinato. You couldn't really hear it all that much, and that's because it was only the cellos playing. And then you would have basically the cellos and the bassoons, but still they're not very audible over an entire orchestra. So later down the line, because at first I didn't have the double basses. I never used them. I didn't think I would need them. But then I made the very intelligent and genius decision to actually include them, because it's to make it a proper full orchestra along with the trombone. But that's for a separate reason. I just thought the trombone would be cool to add, and it works. It's fine. But here, with this doubling, you have these you have like the ostinato in octaves, and it's just pounding, just bum 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 bum. It just creates, it makes it even more dramatic and like fierce. It just makes it far more. It just makes it sound a lot more. I don't really know the proper word for it, but in a way, it makes it far more dramatic. It makes it far more convincing that this is the ostinato. We're gonna repeat this, and it makes it a bit more dreadful, not in a bad way, but like, oh shit, this is apocalyptic. Wanted to get that apocalyptic manner, and the chord progression that I end up going with in this section, G minor, A diminished, B flat major, C. I go C minor, and then I go to F sharp, I drop down to the F sharp to make it an F sharp diminished again, and then I go right back into G minor, and I repeat that for a little while until this section where I hold on C minor, bum 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 bum, and I create another like a then just dominant, and then I go into another, and then I go into another dominant. I go to like E flat major at some point, then it ends up in A flat. I'm not gonna analyze it live because I just simply don't want to. But anyways, so that's the whole point of the ostinato. And you guys might think, oh, there must be a lot of thought process going into this little melody and having this like this layering of the choir. No, there was no thought. I'm gonna be completely honest with you. I just realized, okay, I don't know how I'm gonna create like a heavily contrapuntal section with like the entire orchestra playing block chords, the ostinato, and I just thought it would be too busy to have the choir doing some crazy contrapuntal stuff and going interweaving with each other. So I just decided to make it simple and create a contrapuntal section that actually, or like, well, just a really simple melody that I can mess with later on in different movement, because I do plan on having this ostinato return later. But anyways, so moving on. But again, if I haven't said it already, I moved in this section. I actually modulated. Well, in total, from throughout the piece so far, I have modulated 2, 3, 4, 5 times. At least by the end of this, it's been like a 5-time modulation, because I go from A minor to D minor. Well, A minor to D minor to G minor to E flat major to A flat major, and then I go back to A minor, which is really cool. I'm actually really happy about that. But I kind of momentarily, it feels like I'm going to stay in G minor, because with this chord right here, because I do have that transitory phrase, or like that modulation, that phrase that I use for modulation that I told you guys earlier about, right here. I actually have it here. But here, right, I end on a D dominant once again. Saying, oh, well, we're not okay, so I guess we're going to be in G minor. Nope, we're not resolving that. And I actually go back into A minor to and then I go into E dominant to A minor, and then I have the cellos right here going back down, and then I do a proper cadence. Well, not really a cadence. It just seems like I'm gonna do a cadence. I want it to seem like I'm gonna do a cadence. Bum bum bum. Then I just cut it. I cut it short. And instead of resolving it up here, which what you would expect, I actually do an A major, an augmented A major, an A aug, or perhaps it would be F. No, it's an A augmented, A sharp 5 basically, A major sharp 5. Then I have this little chromatic section going down into the dominant of A minor, because eventually I will be returning to it. So, and throughout this entire section, I just do nothing but build tension, because that's the point. I was like, okay, I can basically resolve this little tenuous or tentious uh, little chromatic phrase here. I can do that. I can just resolve it there, or I can be a complete a-hole to everybody that wants to resolve the tension already, and then just start creating more tension, just adding, just diminished, fully diminished, fully diminished, fully diminished, and then finally resolve. But it doesn't even feel like a resolution, because it's not a perfect authentic cadence. It's actually a imperfect authentic cadence, because in A major. But and even though this, I've been kind of teasing A minor, the A minor release for a while, but I go to A major, and to me it kind of creates a feeling, it just doesn't feel resolved yet. It's just like, okay, that's not the release we wanted. That's not the release anybody really wanted, I can imagine. But it's a resolution. It's like a faulty resolution tactic. And then again, I do that hold out note that I did in the beginning on the same one, but this time I do it to go into that modulation phrase that I like to use, and then I use that to to go back into the main theme, the initial theme, which is my favorite, which it's just I end up utilizing very, very much so in this section. And then I have the soprano soloist, who is now the central player in this entire section of the piece. Like, she's incredibly important now. She is in the limelight. Everyone's paying attention and listening to her melodies. The choir doesn't really matter anymore because she is painting the colors, and the choir is just giving back up or just letting her take a breath. That's like the whole function of the choir, or repeating what she last did, or at least giving another transitory phrase to the next melody that she is going to sing. And so, very basic stuff. Now the everything is background. She is the central player, and that is the whole point. And here, I actually momentarily go to A minor, which is actually really cool. I actually go from A minor to E minor, and then back to and then to A major, which I think I initially detailed already. I think I already talked about that in the beginning of the video, but still, this was an incredibly important modulation for me to make, because I wanted to go into A major. And if anyone can, well, no one will probably get this, but this little section right here, this little phrase, or this phrase, that is from a Mozart piece. If anyone can name that Mozart piece, I will give you a round of applause. I will call you very smart, and not sure that's a very good prize. Not sure it's worth it, but it is from a certain Mozart piece. And I know the Mozart catalog is absolutely enormous, but it is from one of Mozart's large scale sacred works. If any of you can tell me what it is, then round of applause. And I would love to find out who actually knows that. But none of you probably do. Or some of you. I hope some of you. But I'll probably reveal it later if enough people can figure it out. But this is actually a reference to Mozart, which is actually this little area that I modulate to A minor, or A major. It's actually perfect. It's actually, if it's perfectly within this context, it's actually a striking modulation. Not really a modulation, but it's a striking trend, immediate change to A major, and something that you really don't expect. And most people that I actually sent it to for review said they really didn't expect it. Which, that was the point. It wasn't supposed to be something you'd expect. Wait a minute. So it's supposed to be a sudden change of mood, because entirely this Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison, this has been incredibly dark and brooding and dramatic and just depressing. Not really, well, maybe not depressing. Still, it's dark and dramatic all the way through. And then I flipped the script here, and I wanted that dichotomy of oh my gosh, it's so dark, and then switching to bright, colorful, and beautiful, because the prayer. The prayer, Kyrie eleison, Christe eleison, God have mercy on me, Christ have mercy, or God have mercy, Christ have mercy. That can have both a good and bad connotation. Perhaps you're begging for mercy because you are fearful of your incoming judgment. You have greatly sinned, and you are just praying that God have mercy on you. And but also on the same token, it could also be like a prayer as to God is merciful. God is all merciful. He will have mercy on us if we just ask Him. It's more hopeful in this sense, because it feels like God will have mercy. Christ will have mercy on us. Well, it's not. It is wrong to presume that, of course, but it just saying that it can evoke a feeling of dire straits, that you're in complete dire straits, or it can actually invoke a feeling of hope that God may have mercy on through this action of prayer, through this prayer. He I can I can trust. Well, not anyway. Well, I'm starting to ramble now, but still, like that's why I wanted to flip the script because there are two different feelings and emotions that you can get out of this prayer, depending on what situation you're in or just how you put it to music. And I wanted to invoke both both emotions. And I thought having that would have made this a lot more powerful and beautiful. Just, God have mercy, Christ have mercy, and it's just this beautiful melody. But after this, I have this little choir part. Not the notes again, but still same idea. Then I hold it out, and I use this method of and I use this little method of whole notes in a section of like whole notes holding out like that when to signal a change, because as you can see in pretty much every other part, in all the other parts that I have here with the choir, like at least in this section, which I want to make it very clear, we're not changing anything. We're staying in this section. We're staying within this feeling. It's it's short, it's just short, sweet, and that's all I need just for the soprano to get a breath and then continue. Um, I use these whole notes to signal a change, and then I to signal a change of feeling or in a change of or just in a general change in the piece. Like we're gonna get something different. Like so everything that was coming before is gonna be different. Well, is that was one thing, but now we're doing something else, and the mood change is very clear with the way that I've orchestrated this next part. Because I have the strings low this time, which is a hard contrast to the previous part, which we have them in sixth and like very high up sixth, um, very high like just six climbing up and then six climbing down. It's just a lot different. Because I have everyone starting low. The soprano actually goes really low into the register, which perhaps I should just switch it out for the mezzo soprano, make it easier. But no, I'm not going to make it easy. Of course not. And also, I changed the tempo. The tempo is a little bit slower. So the mood change comes not only from the tempo, but also from the manner of orchestration and also the melody itself. It's definitely something that I have that no one has heard before. That hasn't been sung before, or hasn't at least been played before in the entire piece thus far. And so this little introduction, it shifts the mood entirely, and it's a proper mood shift. I think it's not jarring. It's not like, oh, geez, that's terrible composition. I think it works perfectly for the purposes that I wanted to. And then here I wrote this really nice little bass line with. Initially, I was only going to have the bass line and then not care about these little arpeggiation and just not deal with the arpeggiations just to solidify the complete mood change and just make it clear, oh, we're not doing that. That theme doesn't matter. But after listening to it and really considering the options and considering like how drastic the mood change was, I decided I had to have something that ties it together and that keeps this constant flow of a familiarity, because changing something too much and throwing things out that I was previously doing, just it changes it too much. You gotta have some kind of sense of familiarity, which this arpeggiated bass right here above the proper bass line um, gives it a sense of familiarity. It kind of ties things together pretty well. And so I have the strings low, almost as if like a piano. Like I actually wrote this for a piano. I wrote this on the piano first, and do have manuscript somewhere over here, but I'm not gonna look for it. I don't feel like it. But then and then I added the. Then I thought it would be really powerful to add the woodwinds here, and have the flutes playing what she's singing in two octaves up, which turned out to be a great idea. And then after that I would just kind of going through the scale with this rhythm. Eventually I would resolve on A. The choir would respond with a, and then to a 1 5 1 cadence. Simple, very simple but pretty. and you know, still the bass doing its own little bass line, which I really liked. I really like also the chord progression that I came up with that I used repeatedly throughout this little new section. It's almost like a sub piece. This section is like a piece within itself within a piece, so it's like compositional inception. Compos comp compos composite composition. Okay, I'm done with that. So I do A, and then I go from 1, 4, 5, and then I go to the 6. I think no, I go back 1, 4, 5, 4, 6, and then I go to 4, and then I go to uh, 5, 6, 5, 1. It's a really cool progression, because I have a half cadence in it technically, but it doesn't. It's not. It doesn't resolve because it's a half cadence. Well, no, no, it's not a half cadence. What kind of cadence is it? It's a deceptive cadence. So like eleison. That was supposed to sound like a. I think most people would say, oh, you know, little resolution, so beautiful. Like, oh, we're not. Oh, it's not resolved yet. We're not in A major again. We're in F. This is an F minor. That's so like that. No, no, that's not the resolution I want. And I do that specifically because I didn't want to resolve it, because not only did it sound like basic and just like you know, it's not special. This paints a much different color and a much different scene than if I were to just resolution two resolutions in one, or just two proper like 5, 7 to 1 resolutions in one. I wanted to have that deceptive resolution because I wanted to make sure that it actually sounded like I was going to go somewhere else with it, which is precisely what I do. This you know, that's exactly what I do, and this is where I properly resolve it. The choir comes in to kind of elaborate on that, and then to resolve it again, and then here, you know, and again, I'm using basically the same idea. 1, 5, 1, 5, 5, 7, 1, right? Yeah, 1, and then I go down to 4, 5, 6, 5, 1. I do that again, you know, like that general like 1, 5, 1, 4, 5, 6, you know, that general idea, but I kind of mix up the chords a little, because I don't like having everything like, oh, we're going to do this progression every single time. It's gonna be the same thing over and over again. I want to switch it up, and that's my compositional style. I don't really like having everything hyper structured. It makes it harder for me to really properly express the emotions that I want to express. And when I can just say, okay, now I'm gonna use the same chords but just in a different manner. That's exactly what I do. And then I really love this right here. You know, terrible singing, but still, same idea, same purpose, same thing basically, just not tuned, not very good. This is also reference to Mozart from the same piece, I believe, right? Yes, it is. It's from the exact same piece and the exact same movement, but I use that little motif in a similar way to signal the great resolution, which I tease here, like with this little with the solo, you know, like the power orchestra cuts out, and then she just you expect a soft resolution, and then perhaps the strings climbing from above back down, and then they resolve beautifully. But I know I am the only one, you know, I being the one that is writing this massive piece, knows that I'm going to have the Gloria in Excelsis in the very next movement, which I think would be really cool. You have this end off, and then immediately you just go straight into the Gloria. Um, I wanted it to end off in a similar manner. So, I mean, end the way the next movement would begin in a very large orchestra, just massive orchestral, boom, just explosion. And that's what I do here. Like, you know, bum 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 bum. That's not the notes, but functions the same way. It doesn't matter. Okay, leave me alone. I'm not gonna put it in tune. I'm just telling you about the composition. I'm not here to sing. So whatever. So that's precisely the thought, and I just kind of arbitrarily came up with this little climb up the scale and then 5-7. I didn't really have this necessarily planned. I was like, oh, it would be kind of weird to just kind of lightly and then immediately go into this massive glorious just Gloria that's just incredibly different. Although in some cases it's fine to have that like that like extreme orchestral and dynamic cliff where you just maybe you have the whole orchestra, maybe just these woodwinds and the strings, but they're playing a very sweet A major, and then they just slowly die off. And then that's it. That was one way I was actually considering it, but originally I wanted this to end off in D minor, so I mean D major, so it would be a really nice transition to this. But I decided A major and D major are in the same scale of A major, so going from A major and then jumping into D major is actually really not that crazy. Like it doesn't sound jarring. The only thing that would be jarring if I had sweetness, sweet, quiet little resolution, and then immediately going into this. It's just fortissimo. Everyone is just singing loudly, proudly. The horns are blaring. Everyone would jump. You know, Unlike Verdi, I'm not an a hole like that. At least harmonically, I can be absolutely. But in terms of like, I don't want people to just have a panic attack or a heart attack at a concert with that hardcore cliff. And Verdi does that in the Requiem very much so with the Kyrie into the Dies Irae, which is just it is genius. It's Verdi, of course it is. And then it just it ends off with like and then the Dies Irae, bum bum bum. It's just oh my god, it's like it's terrifying. If you have the volume full on, if you have the volume all the way up, and you're just listening to that sweet little song, and you've never heard the Requiem before, you're just like, oh, so peaceful. And then you're gonna get, you're gonna jump out of your chair, you're gonna go through the window, you're probably gonna die of a heart attack. It's just all this is too crazy. You don't want to do that. So I thought I'd just scare everybody with this instead, and it's not that scary. I mean, I'm gonna play it right here. I mean, you guys expect it, but still, it's not that crazy. It functions in the exact same way. Um, but anyways, so that is my thoughts on the first movement. The in-depth, well, not really. It's not even an analysis. It's just me talking about it. My thought process behind it, everything that I wanted to do, everything I wanted to accomplish, what I ended up accomplishing, and whatnot. So yeah, and next time, because this video is close to an hour already, or it's coming in on an hour. Next time I will analyze the Gloria next Chelsea's, which is going to be a shorter video for sure, because it's only like a minute and a half, although it is 10 pages worth. And I do have this little double view going on that I will talk about. And the video after that, of course, will be the Etintera Pax, which I think is the most interesting movement that or at least the one that I did more stuff, I experimented with. I actually did some orchestrational experiments with this one. So I'll get into that and I'll discuss it in depth. And I also have a double fugue in this one. And then I will talk about this really awesome section. I just love the ending. Then after I'm done with the La Damuste, I will of course make a video discussing that and talking about it. But that's about it for me with the first movement of the Mass in A minor that I'm writing. First movement, Kyrie Eleison. I'll see you guys next time, and let me know what you guys think of this video. I'm not gonna cut anything. I'm not gonna edit this. I think it is much better if I don't script this kind of things and have it completely off the cuff. Just whatever comes to my mind, I just kind of throw out of my mouth, unless it has. I'm just gonna do that because I think it gives a lot more insight to what I'm thinking and what I was thinking and what I'm currently thinking. and just gives more details if I'm not scripting everything. I don't plan on scripting anything when it comes to these videos. I think it should be open form. I just talk about whatever I want in regards to the mass. Anyways, I've already said it multiple times, but that's it for me. Hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day. Um, and God bless. And so, yeah, see you later.